engagement so quickly, so fast, and in so real time in a way that's measurable. Okay, so what have we learned through my career, particularly at Fandango? Well, it's really, really hard to go from hello to head over heels. Think about how you actually meet someone and how you engage with them. It starts with a hello. It doesn't start with, hey, I'm Mike, buy something. It will typically start with an introduction. So that is really, really important. If you're new to file, your best prospects initiate a conversation. From that conversation actually comes an introduction where you can actually welcome the consumers into the fold. You could thank them for a purchase. You can onboard them. You could nurture them. You could remind them in the early relationship stages why it was important that they gave you an email address, a push access, or some kind of social media interaction. Making sure that people understand that there is a two-way value proposition. Get them to remember why they wanted to engage with you in the first place. And that two-way value proposition is key. After that, hopefully, you become head over heels. That's through personalized experiences, sharing of content and offers, and making sure that after that comes the transaction and the trust. Now, of course, this is the ideal path, but of course, there are times when people fall out of love, right? There are certain customers that we know that we want to re-engage because they may have had a high lifetime value before in the past. But there are also some customers that we may actually just want to let go. The people that actually cost us more money to continue to engage with than they would ever bring into the organization. So balancing all that, to me, is the heart of the relationship. Now, this takes this one level down. So in the acquisition stage, the welcome and nurture that we just talked about, soon leads into retention. Now, by retention, what I really wanted to focus on was making sure that you're mindful of how many times a consumer transacts with you. To me, the best CRM strategy, the best contact strategy, really identifies where you are on a purchase life cycle and then enables you to target it specifically to move somebody down a journey. And that would typically start with, well, you bought once. Well, what if we can try and get you to buy again? How do I convert people? I mean, Matt mentioned it yesterday from Live Nation. And I think with Fandango, the same thing. We have people that come and they buy with us once. My job is to get them to buy twice, and then 3 times, and then 4 times, and then 5 times. And then ideally, if I can manage that journey properly, it may just well be that consumer then refers my product, your service to somebody else. And then it becomes a great virtuous circle. So how do we measure that from welcome to loyalty? Well, we start with not so much what's the open rate of an email. We may actually start with, well, how healthy is your house file? How healthy is your database? What are the KPI within your database that allow you to know whether your file is actually a viable proposition or not? And break it down in a way using next best action that will enable you to understand how you can use that file to its best advantage. Then comes transactions, site visits, and then your typical metrics like opens, clicks. But we also look at what we call CBF or comeback factor, because what we often find is that someone may open something on a phone in the morning, and then they'll come back and they'll look at something on a desktop that evening, and that's when they actually make the transaction. So stitching all these things together is really, really important. We also look at cost per, but we also look at disassociation, whether that be an opt-out rate, a tune-out rate, or a negative review. It all plays into the journey. Now, Steve, in the introduction, talked a little bit about VIP+. Now, it's a company like Fandango is very, very lucky because we have this beautiful ownership of the entire life cycle from when a film comes out in a theatrical window to digital streaming with Fandango Now and collectibles through FanShop. We launched the VIP+ loyalty program this summer as a summer promotion specifically to get people to buy more. It really was, but when you buy 4 movie tickets, we'll give you 600 points. Those 600 points will give you a $6 credit to use at either Fandango, Fandango Now, and FanShop. Because not only did we want you to have a continuity with us, we also wanted to see whether we could migrate you through our lines of business. Everybody knows about Fandango. Fandango Now is a fantastic service. So getting people who are used to the brand and enjoying the brand to try one of our other family businesses was very, very important to us. So hopefully this would supercharge acquisition, retention, migration. Okay, so a few practical examples. Now, after saying that CRM isn't all about email, I'll give you a few email examples because this is a way that's very, very easy for us to migrate people through a particular funnel. Here's an example of our welcome series. What this does is it balances a couple of things. The first thing it does is it actually reminds people why you would have signed up for us in the first place by showing value and the benefits of what we offer. What we then try and do is we then try and get information as soon as we possibly can. For example, what's your favorite movie theater? Can you add a credit card to your account? What kind of movies do you like so I can start tailoring my communication to you sooner rather than later? As you'll notice also, the 20% off and 50% offer and gift cards, we're also trying to get people used to the fact that we are more than just a ticketing company, that there is a way to engage with us in different ways. So this is the start of the welcome process, and it triggers a whole series over probably between 30 and 90 days, where that's the window where we have someone to go from that welcome state to the head over heel state. After that 30 days, it's really, really hard to get somebody to come back. I personally love email because there is so much real estate available to tell a very, very deep story. I think in the early days of email, we all heard things like, well, creatively it has to be this, or creatively it has to be that. Don't put things below the fold. But I think people are just so used to scrolling down now that whether it be on a phone or whether it be on a desktop, there are great ways to actually tell a really good story, particularly a story that could be integrated. This could be something that really reinforces what someone may have seen on social the week before, that might be on the site the week later. But the whole idea is that real estate, in this example, allowed us to say, Spider-Man now in theaters. If you're a big fan, catch up with Fan Shop. We have Spidey gear for you. Plus, if you haven't seen the original movies, or if you want to catch up before you go, here's what Fandango now can do to help you with that experience. So these kind of templates for us are very, very successful, and they're also very, very dynamic. So my team has done a great job in making sure that each of these modules can be switched out, data-driven, to make sure that they could be as personalized as possible for your movie-going experience, your genre preference, your studio preference, and such like. This is really important to us because I think in the CRM space, so many people speak about personalization and one-to-one marketing, but I've always found that to be so, so difficult because it's sometimes very, very difficult to understand how I can really personalize to the individual level if I don't have a complete profile of what the consumer actually really wants. This way, at least I can reach one to few in a way that is dynamic and measurable and practical to make sure the team isn't paralyzed by workload. What we also try and do is go beyond buy now. When we're all in business, we're all trying to sell things, I understand that. And it's really, really important that we report back our financial numbers to the organization. But there are other organic reasons to engage with consumers that really help with that moving from one purchase to two to three to four that we talked about earlier. For example, if I know you have a high propensity for Marvel films and you have not yet bought a ticket for Black Panther, that gives me an opportunity for a last chance. Now, I don't know whether you bought your ticket somewhere else, but I do know that you haven't bought it with me, so I'm at least going to try and reach out and see whether I can catch that sale. In the spirit of engagement, we also offer content. The know before you go emails are highly successful for us, just to try and say, well, we know you've got the ticket, we know you're excited, we are too. As part of that journey, here's some content, some exclusive clips, some trailers, some materials, some exclusives, just to really help you get excited about why Fandango should be your ticketer of choice. And then lastly, if you enjoyed it, we have a rate and review. That enables people to report back. Tell me, what did you think of that movie? If you liked it, if it was a 5-star movie, go see it again. Particularly in these kind of genres, films are very, very repeatable. People do go multiple times. So the more we encourage that, the more we increase lifetime value. So beyond product affinity, we have an additional level of personalization, and that's really based on how you're engaging with us as a consumer. Like, for example, if you haven't tried Fandango now, I really would recommend it. It's a great streaming movie platform. In this instance, if I know that you mainly enjoy our service through a Roku device, and I know that, why wouldn't I act on that data to personalize your experience? Make that feel like I know you a little bit better, and actually start working with you on offers and content and ways to make that experience even better. Similarly, I'm sure, after yesterday and last night, you guys would enjoy about hearing there's a bar open, but it could be that theaters add different amenities than simply ticketing. They may offer reserved seating. They may offer food. They may offer drinks. If your local theater has changed, it gives me the perfect opportunity to reach out to you and remind you of that fact. Similarly, if you engage with us on an Android phone or on an Apple phone, and I know that, I can target messages around Apple Pay, Android Pay, so that we can at least try and make sure that the information that we have is very, very usable to you. Okay, so that's the good stuff. Well, what also did we learn along the way? We learned that it was really, really important to allow the consumer to engage with us through their channel of choice. Now, our predominant way of reaching people is email, and highly successful it is too. We send very, very high volume out very, very profitably. But we also have people who have tuned out their email, and it's really, really important to them to say only receive push or only engage via social. Letting them have that channel of choice and letting them run with it is very, very important. And I'm sure some of you in the room are working with CDP or orchestration layers just to make sure that you can really optimize that flow in a much more practical way. The next one is really taking a good hard look at when does the journey actually start. Now, this takes a little bit of thought from a movie-going standpoint, because it may actually not be when the trailer first comes out. It may actually be because, Steve and I might want to go see a film this weekend and there's nothing else to do, so we're going to start planning today. Or it may be that we got excited about it when the film was announced and the cast and crew were announced 3.5 months ago. So understanding where that journey starts is really important to understand how I can influence it. Next up, setting expectations. This is always a fun one for me, because running loyalty programs in the past and running CRM initiatives, if you think back to the heart versus commerce slide, the best answer for that for me is, well, if you give me 12 months, I can run a longitudinal study and I can show you exactly what people did over a long period of time. That may not necessarily work for a finance team or for immediate business needs. So getting the expectations up front on what KPI are important, to what stakeholder, to justify what you do, and then socialize those results is very, very important. And then lastly, particularly in the world of CRM, the devil is in the details. Making sure that you're testing absolutely everything. Subject line, day of week, hour, deployment. There is so much that you can do to make sure that the right message is actually delivered to the right audience at the right time, given the technology we have today. And similarly, just make sure that messages are actually delivered. How many emails now go into a promo tab? How can we fix that? How do we solve that? How do we make sure that all the work that goes into a campaign actually pays off in real time? So does all that make sense? Is that useful? Good. Because if you want to chat afterwards, please feel free to grab me, because I could bore you about this stuff all day. Okay, so a few final thoughts before Steve gets the older hook and pulls me off the stage for the next guy. The first one, making sure that we put the consumer first. I think we all fall into this habit, right? We talk data, we talk product, we talk services, we talk what we do. Quite often we just forget about the poor person at the receiving end of this stuff. If you put them first, that may actually determine what the best creative strategy should be or the best release calendar should be. I think sometimes we overlay our org structure onto the consumer. Let it go the other way. What do these people want? And how do you actually go and meet that need? The next one is to keep it simple. With the amount of dynamic content that we can serve, the touch points that we have at our disposal in the modern digital marketing world really allows us to have a very, very high degree of sophistication. But you've got to start very, very simple. Prove the efficacy of what you do, and then build on that. Build on absolutely rock-solid foundation test results as you develop things over time, so that way you can really, really grow based on strength. Defining success we've touched on. But this is a difficult one for me, because I think success may be varying depending on who your stakeholder is. If in a brand marketing world, success might be, well, how many impressions did you serve via your email? To our finance team, it might be, well, what was the return on investment for your email? For my marketing team, it was what might be your open rate, or how many purchases were made from that campaign. Everyone's got a different definition of success. So getting that aligned and getting that socialized is really, really important. Owning the moment. Now, this actually comes from a favorite quote of mine from one of my former jobs, working with the head of Walt Disney World CRM for a gentleman called Tom Boyles. And he would always say, look, you don't own the consumer, but you own the moment. Now, that to me is really powerful, because if you think about how many of your competitors are out there in the digital realm, through email, through whatever other touch points there are, constantly bombarding people for their attention, their dollars. At some point, all you can really do is understand that if they're looking at their phone, at your message at that time, you own that moment. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to say, here's a film now in theaters, buy tickets now? Or are you going to say, here's why you should go see that film. Here's why it will be additive to all the experiences in the movie-going business that you've had. That kind of start with why Simon Sinek approach really, really helps when you own the moment and the consumer centricity follows. From a CRM standpoint and a digital standpoint, I always like to think that it's important to be additive across all channels. It's very important to think that we have to go beyond our org charts and actually speak to the consumer in a unified way. The best experience to me would be on Monday. Our social team says, watch out for your newsletter on the Tuesday because there's important news on that Tuesday release. And if you're not, you haven't got it coming to your inbox, sign up now. On the Tuesday, you would actually announce something that would be big enough that might actually push someone to the site to watch a piece of content that is exclusive, that hasn't been seen before. And then as a call to action on that site, it may then drive you to the purchase funnel. But if at least all touch points are working together for that unified experience. Otherwise, it's just, it's almost like a kidnapper's ransom note of creative and materials, reaching out to the same consumer, trying to get them to buy something, as opposed to having that organic experience. And then the last thing, I think it really resonated with Andrew speaking yesterday about the unicorns. I'm very lucky. I have a fantastic team. Making sure that you have an absolutely stellar CRM and digital team is key to enabling a lot of this. But at the same time, good process, good infrastructure, making sure that the foundations are there to actually make a lot of this a reality. So that is all I have for you guys today. I am open to a few questions if that's applicable for Steve.
We have time.
Otherwise, you can meet me outside, and I'm more than happy to speak, particularly when it's not live streamed, because then I can be more candid.
We'll start here and then come over here. Go ahead.
Yep. Hi, Amy Bartle with La Quinta. So you said something in passing early on that I think is something that gets lost, which was identifying the customers who aren't worth pursuing. One of those critical things, we've all done the chase the 1% that's never going to convert. Can you talk a little bit about how in your structure you've built in mechanisms to identify those people that you decide to set aside?
Absolutely. In fact, in some way, this is back at you for the great sessions you guys were having yesterday, going into the data versus the intangibles. I think most organizations say they focus on big rocks when the paths are actually filled with sand. So let me turn the question back, which is, do you at least know who your top 5% are that are driving 80% of your business, and what you're doing to keep them? So start there. Through that, you may actually define, well, who is the group that's actually costing me $20,000 in customer care, returns, cancellations, and that kind of thing, that will enable you to weed out who actually may be costing you more money than they were ever worth in the first place. But to me, it would actually start the other way around. It's like, who are your best consumers? And I hope each of you, particularly if you are in the direct space, the direct consumer space, do you know who your top consumers are? Do you know what would happen to your business if they disappeared tomorrow? Because if you don't know who they are, you've got to find out. And if they are about to disappear tomorrow, go do something to stop that from happening, because they may be actually sustaining your entire business. So great question. I hope that gives you the right answer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You mentioned early on in your presentation something about house file health as a KPI.
Yes.
I'd love to understand what your definition or how you determine house file health.
Okay, no, that's great. The unfair answer to give you is it's going to depend on every single different industry in this room. Okay, so caveating that, actually jokes aside, it does start with that. Like, what's important to you? So see, for me in my industry, it's size. It's size at scale. And it really breaks things down, balanced by traditional recency, frequency, monetary value, and engagement based on both transaction and open rate. I do not want 20 million people in an email file that all open everything and don't buy anything. Similarly, I don't need 100 people who all buy something but don't actually engage with any of my communication. I think that's why I love email, because it's such a dynamic tool that enables you to go in and play with these metrics. But my team and I joke, we actually have this report called the Marvin Gaye report, shows you what's going on. And what that really starts breaking down is, well, how many people do you have? How many people are active? How many people are active through what channel? Based on that, how many people have bought once, twice, 3, 4, 5, all the way down, right through to I am now disinterested and I've disappeared. Because that way I can look at that report and say, you know what we're going to focus on today? Moving these millions of people from 1 to 2. Because if I do that, the incremental net contribution my team is going to bring to the organization is exponential. And that's 10 times more effective for me than going out for the adult 25-54, go see a movie, you know. It's all vanilla. Yeah, the audience is very different. So the short answer is, for your industry, what are the most important 5 things for you? For your CMO, your CFO, for your CTO, for everybody. And from there, design your report. Or connect to me on LinkedIn and we can talk about it. I hope this isn't going on too much, Steve, because I could bore you with this all day.
Hi, my name's Alana, and I'm with FSA Store. I have a question about the place for AI in driving emotionally intelligent relationship building, and where kind of tools like Optimove or Persado, ones that are spitting out, you know, subject lines based on emotional intent, let's say, and where the line is for that versus using your human relationship building.
What a good question. Okay, well, in fact, in some ways, I can refer back to the panel yesterday, which really balanced the science with the intuition. So let me give you an example. And I think AI, machine learning, is really the way to go. Absolutely. Understanding a complete profile of your consumers and leveraging that data to make this as seamless and as measurable and trackable as possible, absolutely the way to go. But let me give you an example. My wife and I just bought a Subaru. After seeing a little car headline today, we just bought a Subaru. It's our second Subaru in 20 years. Now, I've got these visions of this data analyst in the Subaru office going, I don't know why this guy hasn't bought a car from us yet. You know, he leases cars regularly. You know, he shops at Whole Foods and spends the GDP of a small third world nation. You know, he's an REI member. He's got 15 pairs of Keen shoes for the Keen person out there. You know, he owns a dog. I can't believe this guy doesn't own a 2019, you know, Outback, you know, 2.5-liter injection model, because the profile is perfect. He doesn't know why I didn't buy that car for 20 years. He doesn't know my daughter just went to college in Vermont. She needs a 4-wheel drive. So that's, to me, where the intuition comes in. It's like, what is your Subaru equivalent? Because every organization is going to have it. And I think that, to me, is that 5%. You know, if I look at the transactions we drive and the targeting that we do and the perfection of the targeting models that are being created, they're fantastic. That intuition kicks in for that last 5%, and hopefully that gives you enough incremental engagement, net contribution, revenue, whatever it is, that actually takes you from great to even better. Does that make sense? But AI, definitely the way to go.
Michael, thank you. That was fantastic. Thanks very
Thanks,
much,
guys.
Michael.